Hello everyone! Let's get that main monitor going. My camera's in a slightly different position, so it looks a bit weird when I look left at the chat. But, you know, hopefully it should be more centered when I'm actually doing stuff, so that's cool. Hey there Smorty, hey there Xander, hey there Jumbled Fox, hey there, you get Karak, hey there Canadian Bacon, hey there Zithia, hey there Trixon, hey there Zeraface, hey there Prop Fox, how you doing? This is some great music every time I come here, just the best of jams. I love the Cobalt Core OST so much. I mean, I guess that's pretty obvious from the fact that I play it constantly during stream, but it's so good. Let's see, Leroy Jenkins, hey there Bacon, how you doing? Oh, Zith resubscribed for 16 months, holy shit, thank you for the subscription. How is everyone doing? Have you had a good week? I had a really busy one. I was at work a lot more than usual because I was helping onboard some new people at our company, which was quite tiring, but, you know, now I'm here, which is nice. I want to see the you want to see the trees? Okay, fine. It's slightly disappointing. They're not actually spawning in the world. Happy Sunday to you too. Okay, yeah. Structure generate tree. Boom, we have a tree. Let me clear debug to get rid of the debug voxels. So yeah, so there's a tree. It's just a little model that I put together, like I just placed a bunch of blocks. It's not necessarily to my standards. I actually want the trees to be even taller than this in-game. I'm hoping to have trees be somewhere between like 20 and 50 blocks tall in general. Big cone? Yeah, big cone. I mean, this is kind of what evergreens and stuff look like around where I live. Like, I see a lot of trees that look like this. Probably a little bit nicer, but like, and also not pink. But you know, like it's not way off. Ooh, pretty. Hey there, Talon, how you doing? It's a pretty big cone. Yeah, so I think this one is currently, it goes from 13 blocks to 39, so it's about, I can do math, it's about 25 blocks tall, I think. Yeah, so like, this is on the lower limit of how large I want the trees to be. I think the upper limit is about twice as tall. I really want to get a strong sense of scale in this world, which is why we have absolutely fucking massive mountain formations everywhere. Like, I recently turned off the minimum height for all of the terrain over here, so it used to just be like a flat void of nothingness, but now it's hills everywhere, just like up there, which is a lot nicer, in my opinion, just for at least like playing around and doing stuff. Well, pretty tree, would it be possible to make trees with your structure generation system? It definitely would. I actually, when I was designing the structure system, being able to make trees programmatically using it was part of my goal. I eventually decided that I'd actually prefer to just hand make like a couple hundred trees of each type, or at least create a few and then randomly permute them until I get 100 variations. Mainly just because I like the idea of being able to tailor the types of foliage in my world very specifically, and I've never seen a system that can generate trees to the flexibility that I would want. But you could do a lot with the structure system to make trees. In fact, this is technically a structure. It's just one component. Like if I give myself a structure origin, structure load tree, there's a lot of void blocks. Hold on, structure select, replace void air. Yeah, so this is the structure. I kind of chopped off the real tree here. But it's just, yeah, it's got a attachment point for where the tree actually spawns, and it's just a tree. So, yeah, there's no random happening yet, but I'm gonna make a ton of them, and I'm gonna randomly roll them every time a tree needs to be placed. Trees aren't pink where I am? No, unfortunately not. I mean, it would be a better world if they were. Maybe we should get some, like, food coloring, and then just, like, cover all the trees in pink. A Zepha speedrun strats now? 100... Wait, 100 surprised emote? Are you just saying the trees are 100? Like, the emoji? Uck, Minecraft, all my homies hate Minecraft, but we're all Zepha gamers. You should release that tree as a new Minecraft update. No! Okay, so... Yeah, I want to, like, have really big trees, and I want to have, like, actual tree fellers. So, like, if you chop down a tree, it should fall over. Which is why these are all specialized blocks. They're not just, like, wooden logs that you might be able to place for building. They are tree blocks specifically, and branches. Because I want to be able to, like, if you break the trunk, actually path out and find all of the connected pieces and then make it topple over. You're making me feel like writing my own voxel engine, but with mines being based on BSP trees like Doom and Quake engines, and using a combination of scanline rendering and volume tile rendering. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of those words went over my head. BSP trees, yeah. I don't know entirely what that is. See, my greatest secret is I'm actually kind of a graphics casual. I've learned a lot about the techniques that I'm specifically using here, and then more or less nothing else. The grass is waving now. Is that the case before, or is that new? We did it last stream, actually. Last stream we got the grass working. I've made a few improvements to it since then. Mainly, so we also, or this might have been off stream, but I got, like, billboards working, which I still think is a really interesting effect, and I just, like, I love staring at it as everything rotates around. I haven't decided if I'm going to use this for the final game or not, but I do really like it. But before, the wave direction was computed before the rotations, which meant that the, like, grass would all rotate, or it would wave in different directions based on how you're looking at it, which would make it not necessarily match up with the actual 3D objects in the world. Whereas now the wave permutations are computed after everything else, which means that they wave in the proper direction. So, like, if I look here, it's waving to the right. If I look here, it's waving to the left. Which is just a little bit more cohesion, which I like. Let's see. Windy-ass world. Biome generation when? Technically there is biome generation, I just don't have multiple biomes. It's more of a, like, content design issue than anything else, because I want each of the biomes to have different generation characteristics. Like, I don't want every biome to look like this one, but just with different topsoil. But that becomes really interesting when you're trying to blend between biomes, because you've got to kind of get the height maps at least a little bit similar, and I'm slightly terrified of trying to do that. I'm not sure how I'm gonna make that work. Something I might do is I might add some feature to kind of blend the biome noise by, like, a certain intensity or distance to, like, the next biome over. So, like, I can have these really big hills that all kind of, like, slowly taper up towards, like, the other biome that exists. Like, if there's, like, if we're bordering a desert and the desert's a lot more flat, then I can kind of taper all the hills up to be more flat at the border of the desert. But that's going to take some engineering. I don't entirely know how I'm going to do that, because right now I'm just working off of, like, noise modules, right? And I know I need to change that anyways. Someone in my Discord server was talking about how they were generating more specific structures, and I saw they were using, like, signed distance fields for generating, like, things like rings in the ground, and I thought that was really interesting. So I might look into seeing how hard it would be to, like, integrate that into the system. Yeah, so, you should add Mario 64 trees. It wouldn't be that hard. Also, thank you for the hydrate. Like, these are just small Mario 64 trees. If I wanted to make these trees Mario 64 trees, I just need to go into Blender and make a mesh that was 2 blocks tall and rotated instead of the 1 block tall in here. Also, another weird little bonus is because these are always facing the camera, we don't have to do the weird backface culling stuff I talked about in my last video. These can always be backface culled because they're always reoriented to look at you. Which is, like, a minor optimization, but kind of an interesting one. The fuck is a voxel? A voxel is just like a unit-sized block of something in a grid. So, like, I mean, specifically voxel means, like, 3D pixel, and it's usually, like, technically referred to as, like, a single block, or, like, a single color that occupies a grid of 3D space. But people use it a lot more casually in, like, voxel games to just basically mean any block game. Which really annoys some of the voxel purists, but hey, Minecraft started it, so that's not my problem. What engine am I using? This is actually my own engine that I've been programming from scratch for the last 6 years. Volume Pixel, yeah. So, yeah, okay. Today, today I want to get into doing level of detail stuff. So you can see there's a lot of terrain that's been loaded and subsequently not cleaned up because I don't have any garbage collection on the chunks right now. However, that's actually not the primary concern. I mean, that's definitely a big concern, because if we just have chunks sitting around in memory forever, that's not great. But what we can do is we can have chunks in the distance have a lower resolution than chunks in the foreground so that they don't eat up as much memory or as much render time. So like, for example, if I zoom in really far, you can see the individual plants still waving. Floating point imprecision's making it look pretty fucked up. But like, if I zoom all the way out, there's no way you can see any of that happening way out here, right? So look at those optimizations. So what we want to do is basically make it actually generate lower resolution terrain out this far away and replace our high resolution terrain with it. I don't know if the bitrate is showing it very well, but there's actually like other artifacting here happening because of how high resolution the chunks are. Like, there's kind of this texture banding when I move my camera around. It's very visible on this lump when I move it to the corner of the screen. Like, you can kind of see these like rings forming as I move my cursor. And that's because we're just sampling the texture at too low of a size, and then basically the GPU doesn't know which part of the texture to sample, and it changes wildly between camera angles. You think you can see it through the bitrate? Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's another issue, and that can partially be solved by MIP mapping and anisotropic filtering, both of which just basically sample the texture multiple times in various different ways to try and reduce the amount of inaccuracy. But once you get to the point where there's like not enough pixels, or like a block doesn't take up a full pixel, that's gonna happen no matter what filtering you do. Because like, you can do as much filtering to a texture as you want. If you have 8 different types of blocks that are fighting for 1 screen pixel, then as you move your mouse, it's going to change what block is visible every frame. So people always say I'm making my own engine. I wonder how much they did by themselves. Well, I'm using Vulkan. I'm using Vulkan Bootstrap, which is a small library for setting up the device state. I'm using the V8 runtime for JavaScript execution. I'm using libSDL for handling input and windowing, and then other than that, everything is entirely my code, like 70,000 lines of it. Yeah, so V8, I know that word, that's for cars. Yeah, cars, and also JavaScript. But yeah, so we do have this problem where if we generate full resolution chunks really far in the distance and the blocks are less than 1 pixel wide, then we get this artifacting no matter what. And we can solve that by having lower level of detail chunks, because like, people, level of detail is kind of considered like a bit of a dirty word in game development. People always see like the examples of Subnautica having this viciously horrible pop-in whenever you're moving around. Like, I know that there's this like very famous video of like people going into like the mushroom fields biome in that game, and then all of the mushrooms spawn in over top of their fucking sea moth. But level of detail is actually like a really powerful technique that makes games better if you use it properly. Yeah, you hate pop-in? Yeah, everyone hates pop-in, for sure. But the problem with pop-in... Ooh, my mic is popping. I just realized that I'm peaking. Hold on. Let me quickly change that. We don't want to have terrible pop-in. Let me just lower that a little bit. Yeah, so... Seamoth mentioned. So pop-in is a bad thing if you can see it happening, but having lower level of detail models in the distance can actually make things look a lot better, because it can ease a lot of these artifacts that are currently happening on screen right now. It also just makes the distant terrain easier to parse. I have like some old videos and images of lower level of detail chunks, and they actually look really satisfying in the distance. It kind of creates this like... It makes the voxel world look more like it's a voxel world, in a weird way. It's kind of difficult to explain, but like... It's more cohesive, almost, to have everything be a little bit voxely even out in the distance. Like, it doesn't feel like it's lower level of detail. Your eyes see the shapes of the voxels and they go, yeah, that makes sense, I'm playing a voxel game. And it's very satisfying. I feel like it's hard to actually, like, explain that without showing it, and hopefully we're gonna get to showing some of it today. But yeah, I think it's quite satisfying, actually. something something sub-pixel size polygons, something something GPU chunk sizes make it slower. Yeah, that's another thing. I don't know if people in chat have watched my YouTube video on voxel meshing that I did recently. If you haven't, I recommend it. I mean, it's on my YouTube channel if you're on YouTube, but if you're on Twitch, I'll just throw a link in chat because, you know, you're over there. But I go into a bit of detail about how voxel games are meshed, and one of the issues with having high-resolution meshes in the distance is that GPUs optimize polygons by, like, painting them in groups of 2x2 pixels. And so if you have pixels, or if you have polygons that are less than 1 pixel on the screen, the GPU can't really mesh, or like, paint them effectively, because each, like, 1 pixel polygon needs to mesh, or to paint 4 pixels. Or it doesn't really need to paint them, but it can't do the concurrency properly. Like, it needs to occupy that much space in, like, the thread pool or whatever. Which means that it can do less work in one step. Overdraw galore. Yeah, it's basically like a very specialized case of overdraw. Let's see. If you want to do level of detail correctly, you should see how classic Spyro and the Dragon games in the original PlayStation implemented it. Oh, that's interesting. Do you have, like, a video reference or something? I didn't realize that Spyro used level of detail, but I've also never played it. But yeah, I'd love to see that. But the level of detail we're gonna do here, at least to start with, is we're gonna have it in a couple stages. Let me pull up my fancy drawing tablet that I now have for stream stuff, I guess, and I will demonstrate. If I open up Krita... Let's see. Discard. Okay. New image. Okay, so if we're at 1 times scale, pen not work. Is it out of battery? It probably is. One sec. There we go. Okay, if we're at 1 times scale, then imagine that, like, we're seeing everything. So we're seeing, like, the tall grass, we're seeing the grass blocks, etc., etc. If we're at 1x low scale, which is the next stage up, it's still, like, a single block per, like, rendered block, but there's no detail. So no texture, no non-cubes. And then after that, we're gonna go up to 2x, where each block is, like, 8 regular blocks, and then 4x, and then so on. And eventually, what I want to do, let me just, like, select and shrink this a little bit. Transform tool, where are you? That's not what I wanted. Sure. Rotate as well. Yep. Okay. Eventually what I want is I want the terrain to actually get to such low resolution that we're able to just have a carpet map. So effectively, like, instead of having voxels at all, we're just using triangles to kind of map the deformation of the terrain. And at a certain level of detail, that will be more or less indistinguishable from the actual voxel terrain that we have. So that is effectively the plan. We're going to start with full resolution blocks, and then we're gonna have low resolution blocks without texture or non-cubic faces. Then we're gonna go into, like, higher resolution blocks, or I guess lower resolution blocks to represent the same amount of terrain. And then we're eventually going to get to, like, just triangles. Get that draw pad. Alright, okay, do you care about using AI for quick code generation at all? I wonder how smart people feel about the topic. So, personally, So, in my opinion, I think that AI for code is more or less just copy-paste. Like, I used Copilot for a little bit when it was first coming out, and, like, it did make certain things a lot faster, mainly just because I could start a pattern and then I could trust it to more or less finish it. But I realized that, like, I can do most of that on my own with IDE features. And I don't really like using something that is being trained to take over my job. So I've kind of been a little bit disenfranchised by AI personally. I don't think it's necessarily a bad tool to like use to just mock something up if you want to, but I generally don't like participating in it. I just feel a little bit weird about the whole situation. I definitely don't like it for art or other creative endeavors, though. I think that sucks. Like, the role of technology should be to abstract away the grunt work that we don't want to do so that we can have, like, as a society, more enriching experiences and more exploration of the things that make humans unique. But instead of using machines to optimize the grunt work, now we're using machines to optimize away the creative work so that we can just do all the grunt work ourselves, which, I don't know, doesn't make sense to me from, like, a existence perspective. I don't know why anyone actually wants that. Getting into philosophical shit in the game dev stream. Yeah, our streams tend to derail pretty quick, honestly. What do you mean by blocks not having a texture? One color faces? Yeah, or maybe even one color cuboids. It really depends. Like, the first level might the first level might still have textures. I haven't really decided yet. But, like, at a certain point, we want to not have texture because it's just going to create those noise artifacts. But yeah, we'll see. I use ChatGPT to help me debug serial connection between my Raspberry Pi and dumb WYSE terminal. Yeah, so I do think that, like, general intelligence for learning is potentially a good tool. Like, having a chatbot can be helpful. I do think that people have a tendency to use it in potentially harmful ways to their own growth. But, like, for debugging stuff, I totally understand, like, if it's something that you've never done or, like, is just completely confounding you. Like, I occasionally will be like, okay, I have no fucking idea why this isn't working, and I've looked everything up and I can't find anything. ChatGPT, what the hell is wrong? And sometimes it does get it. It's like, I do get that. I'm currently working on building a code completion assistant for Godot editor using local LLMs. Interesting, local LLMs. So, that's, like, yeah. I think I would feel a lot more favorable to AI if we weren't, like, forced into using a cloud service that is entirely economically driven. So I am kind of occasionally keeping watch on, like, the more open source, like, self-run models, because I think that is more compelling, even though they're not exactly ethically better, a lot of the time. But yeah, I am slightly interested in that sort of stuff, for sure. But yeah, so the first thing we want to do, if we're actually going to get this level of detail working, is probably try and get the blocks at base resolution to not have any detail. So I already have a system for this that generates low resolution chunks. It's just not active right now. And hopefully we should be able to set that up relatively quickly, I'm hoping. We'll see though. You think you prefer the X-shaped grass? I'm still on the fence as to, like, if I like it or not. Like, I kind of like how it's always facing you. It feels very, like, clean. But I'm not a huge fan of, like, when you strafe and all of it turns to look at you. It's definitely something that I'm still, like, actively thinking about. Yeah, so if we want to get our lower resolution chunks to work, there's sort of a little bit of an issue, which is that in addition to lowering the detail of the chunks, we also want to raise the size of them. So the base chunk size is 32 by 32 by 32. And ideally we'd want to have at least double that on each axis on our first level of detail drop. So 64 by 64 by 64. And right now the system doesn't really support chunks at, like, lower sizes. How about X-shaped grass, which consists of two planes which both try to slightly look at you? Huh. That's an interesting idea. I don't have a system in the engine right now to, like, make faces slightly rotate towards the camera, although it's not like that would be that difficult to do. You could base the billboards off of facing the player instead of the position of the player. I did actually try that. I can show what that looks like real quick. I still have the code for it. It's going to be something that I support doing in the engine, but I personally was not a fan of how it looked with the grass. Like, you saw the artifacting when I moved my camera position. This adds artifacting when you move, like, the camera's angle. which I think is a lot more distracting, personally. Let me just build shaders. Grass be like, ooh. Oh, my hair looks good today, thank you. Hey there, Diggly, how you doing? What about scaling the chunk to twice the size instead of having the amount of faces? Yeah, exactly. So that's effectively what the goal is. Ooh. All of the grass is invisible now. That's a new one. Huh. This was working last time. I wonder if I... Oh, I bet I know what's happening, actually. I bet that, it's probably because I removed the back face culling, and these quads are facing backwards now. I'm just trying to think if there's any way to fix that. I guess, just for demonstrating, I could just turn off... I could make all of the chunks render without back face culling. Yeah, let's do that. That's definitely not horrible. Let's do it. Hey there, Jaspers, how you doing? The grass got shy and disappeared. It was embarrassed by how weird it looks when it's in this alternate render mode. Hey there, Data Cobra, how you doing? Alright, so, let's see. Hopefully we should see grass now. If not, it's possible that I accidentally rotated it specifically to, like, to be looking at the tangent of the camera, or the normal or whatever. No, okay, we're good. Yeah, so I personally find this a lot more distracting because everything rotates as the camera moves. They do always face the camera, for sure, but, like, I don't know, it freaks me out in a weird way. It's like, oh god, what's happening? Also, the whole world without backface culling is really surreal. Like, you can just pop under the world and it's like a upside-down world. Very strange. Yeah, okay. Let's bring this back to normal real quick. Alright. Running out of VRAM, 144K textures are a lot. Gonna research optimization techniques. Jesus, 144K textures? Hold on. How much raw data is that? Like, assuming... let's say that it's like 4096 by 4096 times 4 bytes per image times 100 or per pixel times 140 kilobytes, megabytes. That's 8 gigabytes of texture memory. Yeah, you might need to do something with that. Don't forget to re-enable the backface culling. Yep, don't worry, already done. Oh, hold on, wait. Build shaders, please. No. Stop. What? Okay, there we go. It's distracting when games have sprites that always follow you. Yeah, it's really... You love the billboard style? Okay. So it is going to be part of the API, to be clear. It's kind of commented out here because I need to add, like, basically a switch that chooses what mode it's going to be on. But when you make your own blocks, you will be able to billboard stuff. So, hopefully that satiates people's sadness about not having the graph. Oh, it's... No, wait, no, it's normal again. Okay. It just weirded me out because it was behaving differently. Yeah, so... I don't know if I've mentioned this on stream yet, but this engine is meant to be very, very highly moddable. And so, like, the idea is that you can edit any of the in-game content using JavaScript mods on top of whatever the main content is, which is also in JavaScript. So, like, people could just make a mod that converts all of the grass to use the other billboard style if they wanted to. That's fine, average AAA game. I assume you're talking about the backface culling. 2.5 gigabytes on disk, 2.1 gigs compressed, took like 40 minutes on 100% CPU usage. Jeez. Ooh, yeah, okay. That's a lot, for sure. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to go into the chunk mesher, and I want to see if I can get chunks rendering with low detail meshes again. This was a feature until somewhat recently where I turned it off because I was just having some weird issues with, I don't remember what it was. I think it was literally just that, like, I wanted to be able to move around the world and see high resolution terrain, and right now all of the meshes are based on the current, like, or based on 000 as the origin point, and so as I, like, flew away from the world origin, they got low res. So let's see if we can improve that. If we go over to the world, and then we go to mesh chunk. So it's got a level property, which is based on the distance to the camera. Let's reactivate that. So let's go, let's just make it 0 or 1 for now, because I think the level of 1 is, the low-res chunks. No code actions available. Oh, interesting. Do I not have this type? Include oct world mesh, common world mesh, oct world mesh. Okay. So if we enqueue this with a certain level, we should be able to actually switch on that level in the mesh generator to generate low-resolution chunks. Do you have a plan for fading the larger block sizes or have some small level of pop-in? So I was actually thinking about this recently. I was thinking about how you can do like transparency replacing like other blocks in the world without having depth sorting, because I really want to avoid depth sorting if I can. And I was thinking I'm probably going to abuse the fuck out of dithering for my fade-in as opposed to actually doing transparency fade-in. And the way I want to do it is I want to basically flag chunks that are out of, or that are leaving. So basically any chunk that was lower level of detail and is now going to be replaced by a new level of detail chunk, I want to flag it with a specific bit in a stencil buffer. And then after the main render pass, I want to clear the depth buffer everywhere where the stencil buffer is set, which basically, you know, will stop any sort of, it'll stop the faces from occluding any new faces that I render on top, only in that spot. And then I want to basically, like, remesh the new chunks on top and kind of fade them in with a dither pattern. And then also probably fade out the old chunk at the same time, or maybe afterwards, because, like, I don't actually want to potentially, like, see through the world while the dither is, like, swapping between the two. So it probably makes more sense to just fade it out afterwards, or at least just, like, delete it after, assuming that the higher resolution chunk occludes the lower one disappearing once it's fully in there. But yeah, that's the rough plan, is I do want to gradient between them using dithering, but we'll see how that goes. What is the current horizontal axis maximum for blocks? Like, are you referring to per chunk, or just, like, globally across the entire world? Because per chunk it's 32, each chunk is 32 by 32 by 32, and world level, there isn't technically a limit, but realistically there is, where floating point imprecision gets kind of bad. I'm probably going to do the thing that Minecraft does eventually, where they base floating point coordinates off of the integer coordinate of, like, whatever the current chunk is. So then you can sort of subtract the integer chunk position from the world coordinate, and then add, like, a floating point piece to it to kind of maintain precision for a lot longer. But that's a kind of more technical thing that I haven't decided on yet. I need to find, like, dim.add entity. That's a minimal code base. Yeah, here we go. Let's try moving the player somewhere. That would be interesting. So if I move the player to, like, 10,000 blocks over, I think that should actually spawn me properly 10,000 blocks over, but I haven't really tested. Oh wait, hold on. CD, games, Zeus. Let's dev that. I guess I should probably also check if level actually does something. Let's see. Okay, so mesh task copies the level value. Oh, and it also switches... Oh, okay, this might actually break things. It switches where the chunks get pulled from, and then... Where else does it use level? Does it actually use it to mesh the chunks differently? Yeah, that changes... Okay, yeah, so it does create a job based on the level, so... It's probably gonna break everything. Interestingly, it's... I don't know what this is doing. It's, like, kind of half visible and half not. Oh, very strange. Very, very strange. Hold on. Oh, I see what's happening, I think. So, oh yeah, okay. So, basically what's happening right now is, every chunk is assumed to occupy exactly 32 by 32 by 32. And in the shaders, the blocks also can't extend past 32 by 32 by 32. And so what's happening is these faces that are stretching out are the greedy meshed ones, because they can have a 5-bit position and a 5-bit size. But then the actual gaps are being patched up by the, like, the chunks directly next to them. This is, like, really not good for performance, though. This is not how things should be working. It's just technically not that visibly fucked up because of some other bug that's happening. Also, I noticed that I didn't get sent to a different position, which is weird. Also, this might start eating up all my VRAM, so I should probably stop that. Let me quickly go back, and I'm just gonna set the level back to 0. And I want to figure out why... Oh, because I moved the wireframe entity, not the player. That's my bad. In fact, actually, this does not make sense. I think this is actually... Yeah, okay. Here's where the player gets created. Let's do this, and let's see what happens. You don't mean horizontal, but vertical? Okay. Yeah, so the chunks are cubic, so there's also no hard limit vertically. In my actual game, I'm probably going to have basically gameplay limits of positive and negative 1000, more or less. Although I might go far beyond that, but there's no technical limit in the engine for how high or low you can go. Imagine the possible infinite worlds by using multiple Vec3s for imitating a larger position. So, you say that as a joke, but it's not actually that off point from what Minecraft and like the other games that want to do things like that do. It's just that instead of... Why is this not working? This is weird. Instead of having multiple floating point vectors, they have one integer buffer and then one floating point buffer as well. Okay, so we're 10,000 blocks out. Cool. So everything still seems normal. What if we move ourselves 100,000 blocks out? I want to see this now. I've not tested this. I want to see how bad the floating point imprecision gets. We can project 512-bit fixed point math instead of floating point. Oh, honestly, like, including in shaders, Jesus Christ. I'm really interested in fixed point. I'm disappointed that we don't have hardware support for it, but yeah. Oh, this is an interesting one. So, the meshes are okay. Like, there's definitely some jitter, 10,000 blocks out, or 100,000 blocks out. But the ray casting, look at that. I can't actually point at certain blocks, because the angles are so restrictive for floating point increments that small. Oh, that's so weird. Okay. Wild. I love that so much, it's so strange. Okay. Let's go even further. What about 1,000,000 blocks out? Also, you can definitely see the seams and the textures and, like, the jitter and the physics. Let's go 10 times that! Alright. Let's see how it goes. Okay, we're here! I'm noticing the leaves are freaking out. Like, look at the jitter on the grass. Oh my god! Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. It looked almost normal for a second, and then I moved the camera. Holy shit. Wow. I think all hardware already has support for fixed point integers. Yeah, but fixed point floats. Ooh, wow. That is, like, really awful. It's weird how it's actually creating, like, tilt on the camera. I guess it's probably because of quaternion math. Like, my look position's passed in as a quaternion. And, well, I guess actually the real problem is that it's creating a matrix. Because, like, the quaternion would still be, like, close to 0, but then adding the translation stuff in, yeah. Why are you using floating point values for a fixed size voxel engine? So the vertex positions are floating point, the entity positions are floating point, and the camera is floating point. The actual block coordinates are fixed point. That's not part of the problem. I love how you can see the seams in the greedy meshing. Oh, that's so interesting. Okay, I need to ask, what happens at 10 million? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah, 10 million. You've gone non-Euclidean, it's math. Man was not meant to know. Floating point. It's weird how the vertices of the different cubes do not combine. One would expect them to be quantized down to the same floating point number. It's because of, the fact that they're greedy meshed. I can demonstrate. Oh my god. Wow. Okay, yeah. So if I look at this very fucked wireframe out here, you can see that it's actually composed of a bunch of larger faces. Can I move? Can I collide with the ground? Not well. Oh no, the bendy tree! Oh my god. It's actually, like, generalizing more or less 2 integer positions, actually, which is very interesting to see. Jesus Christ. Yeah, so, they would round to the same floating point coordinates if I wasn't using greedy meshing. But, like, there's larger faces here, so that's why they're rounding differently. Hold on, I need to cough really quick. Yeah, so this is actually a problem. This is an interesting case study, almost, of a actual problem that games using greedy meshing have to face called T-junctions, which, fixed point floats. Oh, yeah, no, fixed point floats are amazing. I want them really bad. Is this a floating precision error? Yeah, we're currently 10 million blocks out from the world origin, and the game is only letting me move in this axis because this is, like, the small axis. I can't move this direction unless I fly, because that has, like, a large enough speed. Oh my god. Yeah, so this is like a kind of more advanced version of a real problem that exists even close to 0, called T-junctions, where because these faces all have different, like, border points, they end up rounding to different float levels, or, like, different float resolutions. And then you can kind of get, like, these 1 pixel wide seams in between certain blocks at times. It's something that my game does have right now, but it's kind of hard to show it off because of stream compression. Someone should make a game out of this. Yeah, so T-junctions are kind of a problem with, like, greedy meshing, and for that reason a lot of people recommend just not using greedy meshing at all, which I think is a really, like, it's a bit of a short-sighted decision. Because there are, like, ways to fix it. In fact, there's, like, a really easy post-processing way where you can basically just do a pass over the, like, the screen buffer after you render all of the faces. And then you can just say, okay, is there, like, a 1 pixel seam where the depth buffer significantly changes? That's probably a gap in the world, so I'm just gonna blend between the 2 pixels to the side. And that collapses, like, almost all T-junctions when you're not doing insane shit like this. But yeah, again, like, this can be fixed. If you store the player position as an integer and a floating point offset, then you can subtract the chunks, like, integer positions by the player position. Always center the camera visually around 0, and then you can, like, only use the floating point component of the player's movement plus the difference between the player and the chunks to compute, like, the floating point offset. And then you don't have stuff like this. Oh my god, it's so bad. It started with my question about horizontal maximums and ended with a glitch in the matrix. I love how shit the plants look, too. Like, I love how they're freaking out. Was frustum culling also influenced? It probably is. Oh yeah, it does look like it is. Look at that. Since the world is stored in integer coordinates, you can subtract and offset to get floating values that are as if they're in the center of the world. Yeah, exactly. I love the way that the terrain generates these large cliffs. Such a pretty method. Thank you. Yeah, I actually, I just enabled the world gen to actually generate with, like, larger height variance now than before. And I'm really happy with how it looks, at least when the world isn't, like, flipping out. Are there any T-junctions close to 0? Gabe claimed that even at 0, there would be a lot of T-junctions. There absolutely are. I'll see if I can get an example real quick. Let's try this out. It's actually a lot easier to see if I don't move the camera, because it seems to happen, like, especially often at axis-aligned, like, viewing coordinates. So I'm gonna give it a second, and I'm just gonna kind of walk forwards until I can hopefully observe one. Not getting lucky yet. Come on, T-junctions, I know you're in there. Oh, hold on. That one's only like a pixel, but I'll take a screen cap and I'll show it. Let me just do a screen cap. Let's open GIMP. Okay, right here, this white pixel, that is because the like coordinates of these two faces on the left and right didn't match up along the edge, and it created like a gap in the world. It's very minor here, but it's like especially noticeable if you're moving your camera around and you start seeing like white pixels flashing everywhere. Oh, there's a big one there on the side for a second. But yeah, they're really hard to consistently reproduce because they only, like, it's just floating point imprecision. It can happen anywhere. Oh, there's another one, like up there. But yeah, because of how they are only on seams, it's vanishingly rare for them to not just be like 1 pixel wide on like a horizontal or vertical scale. And so you can just basically do a post-processing pass that averages the colors between 2 gaps like that fairly easily. Why block float offset and not chunk offset? I'm not sure what you mean. Like, are you just asking why I currently have floating point imprecision? It's just because I haven't programmed the better system yet. It is, like, planned. Oh, thank you for the hydrate. I should probably do that. You remember seeing lots of these pixels in the 3DS version of Minecraft. That's very interesting, because I didn't think that Minecraft used greedy meshing. Maybe Bedrock Edition does? Yeah, I'd have to look into that. That's very interesting. It's possible that it's like a different, but like similarly presenting bug as well. Because like there's a lot of things that can cause floating point imprecision to have like seams in the world. And like admittedly, I haven't tried the post-processing approach before, I just saw a post about it. But I'm really of the approach that like, if you can fix it in post-processing without there being any degradation in like quality, you shouldn't overly constrain your data to not have those issues appear in the first place. Like, I'd rather be able to do optimizations and have this whole lane be one quad than have to like have everything be rendered independently just to avoid having those seams ever appear. It's probably rendered differently from Bedrock because it's not compatible with the other versions. I wonder if they did have to implement greedy meshing just for the 3DS because it's so underpowered. That would be pretty interesting. Music might cut out for a second here. I just have to quickly swap out my earbuds because the other ones died. Ooh. The audio quality's all crunchy. Why is it crunchy? Desktop audio properties. Please fix your shit. I don't wanna... Oh, okay, hold on. Properties. Default. Huh. Is the audio quality notably worse for you guys, or is it just on my side? Let me go into volume control real quick. Output devices. Interesting, it's not actually registering the device. Huh. What if I unplug it and then plug it back in? Let's disconnect from here. Connect back. Still hands-free. Interesting. That's frustrating. Okay. Well, that's fine. I'll just use the shitty wired headphones for the rest of the stream. I don't need good audio. One sec. Yeah, this was a bug that occurred for me recently with a more, like, recent version of OBS, is I've been finding that it's forcing my earbuds into hands-free mode, because it's trying to use like the microphone. It's not even using it, it's just monitoring it, which is causing them to go into hands-free mode. Okay. Wow, that's loud. It sounds like I'm far away from the mic. Hold on one sec. Oh, I bet I know why. All the audio issues right now. Fix that. Okay, that should be better. Shitty wired headphones. Yeah. You told about making the player transform with 2 parts, block, integer position, and float offset. Why not offsetting from the current chunk instead of the current block? Sorry, that was honestly probably a misspeak. Using the current chunk makes a lot more sense in most scenarios. Music crunchy, but voice good. Built-in analog stereo? It should be normal. The audio should just be, like, regular quality right now, I think. Just imagine what optimizations you would have to do for an optimal Minecraft clone for the N64. I saw someone do that recently. There's someone that's like making, or that made like a mod for Mario 64 that made it a voxel environment. It was kind of interesting to see. Very, very cursed, but very interesting. Alright, so something that's kind of frustrating is I can't actually make chunks that are larger than 32 on each axis with my current vertex format. So we might have to take a little sidetrack, a little deviation here to fix that first. So if I go over to my chunk mesh class, or file, sorry, we've got this property, or this struct called node face data, and this represents a single face in the world, so like a quad, and it's pretty much packed as tight as it can be. It uses every single value here, and even so, it's a little bit less, like I can't represent as many model values as I want to be able to. And that's mainly because of, that's a real thing that slows down a lot of games. Oh, memory overhead, for sure, yeah. There's like a very real thing that's happening here, which is like, I need to be able to get the, some of these values out of the block, mainly the positions, because these are block positions. They just represent like the X, Y, and Z coordinates of the block in the world. It has nothing to do with the face. So if we create a new data type called node, I guess node data? Like, nodes are what the blocks are, and this is node face data, right? So, but don't you need to change that? Just scale the chunks of that as visually 64 by 64, but internally 32 by 32 with just a scale. So, I can do that. My goal was that, like, the lower resolution, or the lower detail chunks should be 64 by 64 by 64 blocks wide instead, though. Just because they can represent more terrain with less quads, because they're using the low-res chunks. Although, that might not be worth it. You know, it really just might not be worth it at all to do that. Because, like, then I actually have to maintain that. Like, if I want the Octrees to work properly, if I make the low-res chunks 64 by 64 by 64, all of them have to be that. Which I guess is fine. Yeah, I'm not sure. Decision paralysis. See, this is why I've avoided doing this for like a year. Is because if I make a decision and it's the wrong one, then I have to rewrite so much code. But sure, let's go with, this is actually an easier option. It's just like choosing to continue to make the chunks 32 by 32 by 32 and scaling them, and then I can optimize afterwards if I need to. So, let's add back the level property for if it's going to be a high or low res chunk. And then I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to also capture level 1 in this list of chunks to gather. I don't want to think too hard right now about collecting the chunks properly, because I'm going to end up changing that a bunch. Basically, we need to collect a bunch of chunks so that we can send them to the chunk mesher so that it can actually mesh the terrain. I remember you talking about some sort of weird data structure in order to store a different level of detailed chunks, but that wouldn't be needed with scaling, right? Because all chunks take the same memory. So the data, sure, but I do need to represent the meshes spatially in a way that makes sense. So I do need to store the meshes at like in a kind of Octree. AMD when I implemented matrix multiplication by multiplying and adding all values in hand using Python to render a teapot and wireframe using tkinter. Oh, okay. Multiplying and adding all values by hand, yeah. Jeez. Python freaks me out a little bit. Okay, so now that we're getting the same chunks in, we're gonna pass that to the job here. And we're gonna go to here and we're gonna say the size is gonna be level -1. We're gonna say val.level is less than 2 space chunk length. Otherwise it's gonna be 2 to the power of val.level -1. So that's gonna make the chunks wide scale after the first level of detail offset. Now, that might be all it takes. I'm not sure. And then we also need to do level 1 here. Alright, let's see if this works or if it crashes. Okay. So currently what I've done is I should have just changed all the parameters for meshing data so that our level 1 chunks, which are the lower level of detail faces but same resolution, should be generating just like normal chunks but without detailed models. Let's see if that works. So we've got the high resolution chunks up close, and we should get lower resolution chunks in the distance. Yes, we are getting them. Okay. So from here, I'd say the only thing that's actually distinctly noticeable as lower level of detail is these white flowers, because they're just so much bigger than they are in like the close-up terrain. Like you can really see they're like visibly larger, right? Whereas everything else I think is almost indistinguishable. Like if you look at these versus these, they look the same, even though when you zoom in you can see they're like, you know, blocks, right? In fact, like, I really like this technique because you can get quite close to stuff before realizing it's wrong. Like, these are like actual waving leaves, and then these ones over here are just like flat planes. Or not flat planes, sorry, just like flat voxels. Now, currently we can travel over here because I don't discard old low-resolution chunks, and I also don't generate high-resolution chunks as you get closer. So we can just go into the low-res zone, which is not what we want. Eventually we want it to be like, when you travel over here, this area gets meshed in more detail. But that's not something that I can do just yet. That's going to take a little bit more work. So the next thing we need to do is we need to actually sample distant, like even more distant terrain at a lower resolution. So we need to give the mesher like every second block, for example, and then let it mesh that data. And then we need to actually double the scale of those chunks visually to like make them display as lower levels of detail chunks in the world, but like properly sized. So like for example, say we take this region of world here, and then we constrain the data so that we're only looking at every second block, which would basically like have the size of the chunk as it's meshed, and then we scale it up by 2. And then that ends up giving us a full-size half-resolution chunk. One other thing I'd like to do as well is I want to make sure that there's certain blocks that have a maximum level of detail that they render at. Although I might actually just do that by averaging. Like, for example, I don't want, like, flowers to be super, super massive in the distance. But, like, you should still be able to see a little bit of flowering there. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm probably actually gonna, like, do a bit of a hierarchy with how blocks are, chosen to be rendered at lower level of detail. So, like, imagine a 2x2 grid. Imagine that these blocks have to be represented by one color. and say that one of them is a flower, 3 are grass, and then down here there's a bunch of dirt. In fact, actually, let's make this a little bit more complex. Let's say there's some stone down here as well. What I want to do is I basically want to take the average of the top here, and if it's meant to render, then it renders, and if it's not, then we want to take the average of the bottom layer. What's up with the random stretch textures, if I may ask? Basically, it's just, I'm doing greedy meshing, and I haven't sorted out scaling the texture UVs on the side of blocks. Basically just because I need to store somehow the direction that textures should scale based on how the 3D coordinates of the block are scaled. And that's just a bit of, like, that's basically just a little bit of, what's the word? Like, linear algebra, maybe? And I just, I didn't want to do it right now. It's not linear algebra, it's just like geometry stuff. I basically just need to create like a spec that says, oh, if the block increases on the x-axis, then this should be like stretched differently. Oh no. Oh, I see what you... I forgot I added that. Okay. I forgot I added that. 1 second, guys. Guess who forgot she added that button? I did! Oh wow, the camera's really overexposed. That's actually really nice for me, but I feel like that's not quite fair. Hold on 1 sec. Let me fix that. I forgot I added the ears reward. That I kind of put it on as a joke, and then I forgot to turn it off. Shit. Anyways, there we are now. Oh, thanks for the hydrate, Zeph. I hate you. Okay. What am I actually doing right now? Okay. The chat message crashed me. Oh god. This is the type of fun you get if you go on Twitch. You get the channel points, and then you can make stupid things happen, I guess. Don't forget. Oh, thank you, NX. I appreciate that. Okay. Right. So I'm gonna do my best to continue to not be embarrassed. So we need to make it so that low level of detailed chunks render at double scale. Twitch has dumb ads. What the? It shouldn't have ads. I don't have ads on. Ugh, Twitch is stupid. Whatever. Yeah. So. That's weird. It really shouldn't have ads. I think I have ads turned off in the ads manager, but Twitch is stupid. Honestly, yeah. I wish there was like a joined system I could use for that sort of stuff, but like, YouTube doesn't have a channel point system and I'm not gonna program one myself. They put them there anyways because Bezos is hungry. So wait, the only difference between if I have ads on or not is if I get paid for the ads that run anyways? Okay. That's fun. Okay, so we're gonna have to basically do some weird shit here. So let's say distance is less than 20, level 1 or level 2. This is just a test so that we can see what happens if... Wait, that's a 0. I can type just fine. Stop the build. Rebuild. Okay, well in that case I might just turn the ads on Twitch if it actually doesn't change the viewership experience. That's so dumb. No, I think it's just the first ad that shows on Twitch, but if you turn ads on, there are also midstream ads. I think I have an option for pre-run ads. I'm pretty sure there's a setting for how long, like, before, like, the stream starts that mid-run ads can happen, and I have it turned off. Or, sorry, pre-roll. Okay, so the mesher is not happy. I'm seeing some things over here that don't look quite right. So let's see what we can do about that. So, yeah, that's definitely not right. That's not right at all. So basically there's a couple issues. The first is that we need a way to represent the chunks such that they only appear every, like, second block in each axis. Whereas right now we mesh a chunk every single, like, chunk coordinate, even if the chunks are meant to be bigger. The second is that we need the mesher to be able to be given lower detail chunks, which is not something that there's a system in place for right now. So if we want to have more, like, higher resolution chunks, we need to send more chunk data. How long do I have to wear the ears for? At some point, I'm pretty sure I was going to add an even more expensive channel reward called Remove the Ears, and I don't think I added it, so I think they're just stuck. Yeah, for the stream. Jeez, okay. Yeah, so basically, the first thing we need to do, actually, is probably a data structure thing. We need to basically create a data structure that can represent lower level of detail chunk meshes. So at that point, it's going to be kind of based on an Octree. So if we have our world, why can't I draw? Layer is locked. Well, don't be. Okay. If I have, like, my world, and regular chunks are this scale, right? Then at some point, this is a 2D slice for the record, at some point we need to start representing distant chunks in this scale, where they represent like 2x2x2 regular chunks. This model is pretty good for like an Octree type data structure. Octrees are basically 3D structures where each region can be subdivided into 8 more regions of equal size, and then each of those can be subdivided as well. Which makes a lot of sense for stuff like this, because we're kind of incrementing the scale by powers of 2, and the Octrees allow us to, like, go in or out of, like, resolution in powers of 2 as well. So we basically need to implement an Octree, but it also needs to store certain metadata in its non-leaf nodes. Maybe it acts like a toggle. When someone redeems the reward, you either take it off or put it on, depending on if you're already wearing it. That would be fair. Yeah, that would be fair. I don't know. If someone redeems the channel points to remove the ears, then I guess they'll go off. You'd save me from being a moron online. Yeah, so basically we need to represent, or we need to have a data structure that can represent all the chunks, that needs to encode the, like, detail of each chunk value. No way Octree mentioned let's go optimization. Yeah, so this is like, this should be simple, and like the idea of implementing an Octree is not hard, for the record. It's just that there's like so many cases to consider that I feel like I'm not actually handling properly yet, or I'm not really thinking about. So let's just go for it. Let's just try it. So we'll create, I think I already have a bit of an Octree set up. Let me just check what this looks like. So we have an Oct world mesh, which is, this one is specifically for things that are not level 0. It has a render method, which we're not gonna do. We're not gonna use, like, we're not gonna render the Octree. We're going to actually store render lists, because rendering the Octree is not actually very useful to us, because we want to be able to run different shaders on different levels of detail. So the Octree is for storing the data, but then we're gonna have separate things for actually, like rendering through the data, if that makes sense. So I don't even know. Use old data is equal to false. I don't remember what this code was. Apparently I wrote it 19 months ago. So more or less what we want is we want an Octree leaf, which has a mesh, maybe, a level of detail, which is a number, and then we're also going to have a position, which is a vector. Test viewer says, will you be making a game in this engine as well, or will it be a platform for others? I do have a game that I want to make in it, but I also want it to be able to be a platform for others. I want to make a video game, a sci-fi sandbox game about shapeshifting. I basically want to create like a kind of, I want to make a sandbox game where you travel through various different environments and shapeshift into different types of fauna to be able to, like, survive in them, and, like, unlock different mobility options and combat options. But yeah, everything is still in, like, very early stages right now. This is all just, like, more or less test content. So our leaf needs to have maybe a mesh, maybe an LOD. And then our Octree nodes is going to have a vector of, or I guess an array of 8 variants between a node or a leaf. So they're going to be able to have like children, basically. Or I guess actually more specifically, our node should either have a variant of 8 nodes or 1 leaf is the actual system here. And then we also probably want to have... So, the other thing to think about is when we are going up in detail, when we're going down in detail, it's easy, because we're taking 8 chunks, and we're just making one larger chunk that represents them all. But when we're going up in detail, we have one chunk that needs to be replaced by 8 chunks. And we can't delete the one old chunk until we have 8 new chunks. But because of the way multi-threading works, we might not necessarily get all 8 of those new chunks at the same time, and we need somewhere to basically hold on to them until we can actually use them. Which is probably why I had this old data property. The character is essentially Space Beast Boy. I don't actually know. I've not watched... I think that's Teen Titans? Maybe? I've not... I haven't watched that show. The idea is that, like, the entire planet is basically, like, there was an ancient alien civilization that used, instead of creating, like, preventative technology for disease and illness and whatever, they basically just created systems to reconstitute people after they die. And their culture was just, okay, if you get sick, just end yourself and then get reconstituted. And so they have this, like, massive network of towers that, like, bring people back to life when they die. And then, like, eventually those things started to break down, and then they scrambled all the genetics of the people that are there, and everyone ended up dying, and now you're here, and those things are still functional, but also very broken, and every time you die, it also scrambles your genetics. So... yeah, we're gonna have a leaf and a node, and I guess specifically what we want is we might actually want also like a next leaf, which contains data for the higher level of detail if we're generating it, but it's not ready. I think that makes sense. And then we also, I guess, need a position. Maybe. And a level of detail. But, like, for this specific node, not for the leaves that it contains. I think that makes sense. I think that this does actually make sense in my brain. We'll find out. But yeah, basically, so let's create a type for this. I'm gonna comment all this out because I don't actually know if any of it's useful. I mean, some of it is definitely useful. I can tell already that, like, some of it is just generic stuff that's gonna be reused. Let's create, like, a struct called class OctWorldMesh. And it's going to contain... I guess we'll have OctWorldMesh node and OctWorldMesh leaf. The leaf is going to contain a mesh. I don't remember what the type is. Let's take a look at client dimension. It is... VK mesh buffer item. Yeah. So we're gonna have a VK mesh buffer item. Client graph Vulkan VK mesh buffer. Hey there, Darksoon, how you doing? Okay, so we're gonna have a mesh buffer item called mesh. We're going to have... I think I can actually do like a OctWorldMesh base. And as long as I don't make this have anything virtual in it, then I don't think there's any runtime cost to inheriting it. And then I can have shared properties in here. So like U32 level of detail. Actually, we can probably just do a U8F. There's no way we're gonna have more than 255 levels of detail. Although, actually, hold on. There is a meaningful distinction between a level of detail in the mesh and a level of detail of the Octree. Because, like, technically this is an infinite Octree. It can represent as much space as we want. And so, like, if you imagine, like, the Octree levels, they double every time you go up a level, right? So, like, if this is level 1... then level 2 is this whole span, right? So it scales pretty quick. But say for some reason we need meshes for like 10,000 blocks. We're probably going to need many, many levels of Octree. Actually, we can compute that. We can just do log 2 of 10,000 divided by 32, I think? Did that actually log 2, or is calculator dumb? There's no way there's 94 levels needed there. Because 10,000 divided by 32 is 312. And then we need to keep dividing it by 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So, I don't know why it said... Maybe I've just got my math wrong. Because, yeah, that should have made sense, but... Huh. Anyway, so there's like 9 levels needed there for 10,000 blocks. We're probably not going to have 9 levels of actual level of detail, but we need to be able to at least have the data structure go up as high as we need it to actually represent all that data. So we're not going to store it as a U8. We're just going to store it as a U16F, which might end up being a U32. But there's no way we're going to need more than 65,000 blocks. If we needed, or 65,000 levels. If we needed 65,000 levels... then we can't calculate it. Hold on, wait. I guess I could probably go with just a U8 as well, realistically. Yeah, let's just do a U8. It doesn't seem like it matters. So yeah, our level of detail is from 0 to 256. Then we're also going to need a iVec3 position, which is an integer vector, That's just gonna store the top left position of the mesh chunk. Why does the Diablo 2 hacking guy have more viewers right now? I prefer your face to his. I don't know who the Diablo 2 hacking guy is. Thanks for the compliment, I think. Okay, finally we're gonna need our mesh, which is in this class here. Cool. And then we're also going to need, in the node, a variant of array node 8, oct world mesh node, sorry, and then an oct world mesh leaf, which I'm gonna have to define above here if I want it to work. I could forward declare it, but there's no real point. This isn't a circular data structure, so it's fine. And then we're going to call that data. And this isn't gonna work, actually. I just realized this is not happy because this is, it's recursive. So I guess what we actually need is a unique pointer to this array. No, don't go tell his viewers to show up here. Don't harass the random guy. Did I write? Oh, Tugal. So, okay. So, this is like a weird technical detail that C++ felt, C++ did, which is kind of weird. So, if you have, so everything is allocated on the stack unless you make it a pointer in C++, right? And so that means that our oct world mesh here has to know the size of its contents, as long as they're stack allocated. This is a kind of complicated example, which makes it sort of hard to tell what's wrong. But let's try it this way. Let's say that we are storing an oct world mesh node inside of this oct world mesh node, and then we also store an integer in it. Now, imagine we're the C++ compiler and we're trying to figure out how much space this takes up. Well, we know it takes up an integer, which is 4 bytes. That's easy. Then we also know it takes up the size of this structure. So let's imagine we put this structure back in here. Now it's got another integer and another one of this structure, and it will just recurse infinitely and need infinite space. Because we need to store infinite numbers of these same integers because each of our structures contains another one of it. And me explaining complex C++ stuff in cat ears is such a mood. I'm so humiliated right now. Please, just, please don't mention it, God. Ugh, I need to get rid of that button. Knock off Freya Holmer, apparently, right now. So yeah, if we want to actually be able to have this recursive structure, we need to have a pointer somewhere along the way because pointers have a known size. A unique pointer is always 8 bytes on a 64-bit system, and it just points to data in the heap. And it also is nullable, which means that the CPU, or I guess the compiler can know that it can end. So we're gonna wrap this whole array in a unique pointer, as opposed to wrapping each individual element in the array in the pointer, because we want to avoid pointer indirection as much as possible. The more distinct pointers we have, the more memory fragmentation we have, because 2 pointers, even if they're right beside each other in a structure, don't necessarily point to anywhere nearby in the actual heap. So it's better to wrap our entire array in a pointer so that we've got 8 contiguous meshes, or I guess 8 contiguous nodes in the array, than to have a pointer around each node, because then each node is somewhere random in memory. If you get rid of the button, you can never take them off. Oh shit. No, the button... It's only until the end of the stream. If I ever do programming live streams, I'll never show my face. V2 that avatar fursuit all the way. Okay, so... I'm kind of, like, a bit weird on this, because I've never been worried about showing my appearance online. Like, I grew up around a lot of people that were really conscious of the idea that, like, if their personal information gets leaked, people know where they live. And that's, like, a real fact. Like, you know, if people get your address, then strangers know where you live. And that's kind of scary, right? And they were very, very careful about their, like, presentation online. I was just always of the opinion, like, even when I was really young, that there's no possible way that you can get an internet presence and avoid that happening anyways. Like, you're basically just operating on the goodwill of society to not dig too deep, right? There's no way that you can actually be anonymous on the internet. And so, like, well, I'm obviously not gonna say my full home address on stream right now or give you my social insurance number. Like, I'm not particularly worried about privacy on the internet to the degree of avoiding showing my face, just because I feel like it doesn't really help me in the long run. If someone's really dedicated to ruining my life, they could piece together all of the random info from my parents on the internet to find where I live, because they're sure as hell not gonna be private, right? So, what does it really matter, right? But, like, it's definitely to taste. Like, if somebody feels more comfortable not presenting themselves more publicly online, then, like, I'm not gonna bash them for it. It's just never made sense to me. I quite like C++, although figuring out how to use, rain in it, oh, RAII, I'm assuming, would be quite useful. Hear me out, have all of the nodes stored in a vector and just have the indices be the pointers to the nodes. That would actually be... Huh. I mean, I'd mainly just be worried about the data structure, like the cost of reallocating the memory when, like, the vector changes. Having the pointers be indices into the vectors makes a lot of sense, for sure. Yeah, I don't know, I might do that. I'm gonna leave myself a to-do to consider that. Consider storing all leaves in a contiguous... I can't spell. Vector, and storing index offsets into the vector instead of heap allocating everything. Because, like, I'd want to consider the amortized cost of, like, actually reordering the vector, because that would mean moving a lot of memory. Now, admittedly, these meshes aren't that big. Like, this is, I think, a 64-byte struct. It basically just encodes a few numbers. Yeah, like, this item here, it's a little bit large. It's 40 bytes, but, like, it's not actually that big. They're mostly just pointers. Ooh, wow, we have a spam. Oh, wow, okay. Twitch actually blocked spam. I get so many spam messages, and this is the first time that Twitch has identified one and blocked it. Cool. C++ RAII. Yeah, resource allocation. I mean, I like RAII a lot. I can't say that word without just, like, going RAII. But, yeah, I really like resource allocation as initialization. It's very cool. Like, it's one of my favorite things about C++. I like that nullability is very explicit. I like PHP as well. Wait, where did you hear that? Who's been lying about me? I used to do a lot of stuff in PHP. I used to really enjoy it. But, yeah, nowadays not so much. I gave up on being anonymous as soon as I realized that addresses are public with just your name with voter registration. Yeah, like, the government does its fucking best to not let you have privacy. Like, I'm in Canada and there's, like, similar issues. Like, if you have, like, a license, like a driver's license, I'm pretty sure you can be looked up. If you have a business, like, I have a legal business because I do freelancing, there's an address that has to be assigned to that. It's like, it's just, it's frustrating, right? Like, you can't exist without having ties back to you. If I actually thought I could be functionally anonymous, then I probably would. But, like, I've never been under the impression that it's possible. GDPR go burr. Alright, I think this is gonna be I'm sorry that this is, like, not happening very fast today. I'm mostly just, like, a little bit exhausted, more than anything else. So I don't know how much longer this stream's gonna go, but I want to see if I can get a little bit more happening here. I had people contact me knowing all of my details, and they said they legally looked it up by a land title search. Yeah, it's like, it's so frustrating. Okay, so we're gonna have our optional of a leaf that is going to be our next leaf. Cool. Okay. And we're going to... At this point, we just need to have a thing for actually managing the Octree. So I guess what we should have is a class that is just Octworld Mesh Tree. Did I just, like, tell it to build by pressing that button? Wait, this button builds? Oh my god. I just had a button on my keyboard forever that apparently just builds shit. And I forgot it existed. I can't believe myself. Rust option Enum mentioned. I have a lot of aliases that are similar to Rust. I use like the std optional, I use all of the like typed integer types. I think Rust has RAII taking the form of borrow checking. So it definitely has RAII. It just, but like, it's not because of the borrow checker. The borrow checker is a separate system. I love Rust too. I really like Rust. Okay, so what we need to do is we currently need to store a unique pointer to an Octworld mesh node, which is going to be our root. Why is this red? What have I done? Huh? Cannot be defined in the result type of a function. Very strange. Anyways, you must sleep. Lovely stream per usual. Good night. Thank you so much. Have a good sleep. Alright, is it just because I don't have a semicolon? Why is it freaking out? Or is this just like a weird, like, delayed warning from like the last build? Oh yeah, it was. Okay. Alright, and we're gonna basically need methods for adding a new leaf. So like, let's say that we have an Octworld mesh leaf. We're gonna need one for removing a leaf, probably. And we're probably gonna need one for like finding a leaf as well, like void or like Octworld mesh leaf find. Which will take a position. And I guess we'd probably want this to be a pointer because it might not be true. Or like it might be optional or not. Yeah, honestly, okay. I'm really sorry, but I think I'm probably gonna cut the stream short here, mainly just because like I'm really struggling to think about this, and also like my stomach's kind of hurting. I woke up feeling a bit weird this morning, and I think I might be coming down with a cold or something, which sucks because I had it recently. Like, I had a different cold recently, but there's 2 people in my house with COVID right now, and it's been like 3 months since the last time I had it, so my immunity may be wearing off. But yeah, so I'm gonna cut the stream short here. I guess I'll do a little shameless plug, even though I'm leaving. I have a Discord, which I post stream announcements on and stuff. I also have a YouTube channel, which most of you are aware of, I think, because you're on YouTube. But yeah, I have a YouTube, it's @Aurelius. If you want to come into the Discord and chat, that would be very cool. There's lots of people there, who are very interesting and cool to talk to. I love chatting to the people on the Discord. There's always just so many interesting, like, opinions and views and stuff, and like, I keep learning about new things about, like, Voxel Dev that I just never knew, which is great. It's really cool. r/furry. Yeah. Alright, yeah, so sorry about that, guys. I will be back, next Sunday for Ludum Dare, which is exciting. There's, Ludum Dare 56 coming up. I'm doing it in a week. I used to always do the Ludum Dares. I did, 53 and 54, and I actually came second in the compo in 54, which was exciting. But yeah, the next one, 56, starts in 5 days, and I'm gonna be doing the compo, and I'm basically gonna be live streaming the entire thing. At least, you know, if whatever I'm feeling goes away by then, so hopefully we'll see. But yeah, like, in the past, I've basically done, like, 12-hour streams for the days that the compo's on, and it's been absolutely exhausting. It's a sight to behold. It's just, like, if you ever just want to see someone actually just dying at the keyboard, trying to write code within a deadline, that's what's gonna happen next weekend. So if you're interested in that, I will be streaming all weekend starting Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So yeah, definitely stay tuned for that if you are interested in that at all. We're going to be trying to make a game in 2 days. Other than that, though, thank you all so much for showing up. This was great. And I'll catch you next time. Bye, all.